This conference will now be recorded.
So hi everybody, if you have questions, just go ahead. Yes.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay. I feel like I'm on this is a new path, and I'm reevaluating everything I've been doing. And I'm trying to see if you could, so I'm trying to, I guess, set up a simple, a very simple structure where I'm living effortlessly. I guess that's one way to see it, but I'm reevaluating living as an artist, and then I guess I have questions about what is money, which is or if I live as an artist, ideally I would be producing what I believe in all the time, like living effortlessly, and in finding truth would have a way to survive in a simple way. So I don't, that's the goal. And then my thought is, if I go for the next, let's say, a month, and continue to deepen my breaking past conditioning habits. I think this is a lifelong, I think I'm going to be, if this is a lifelong 10, 20, 30 year process, which I guess it is. I guess my question is, I don't know. I mean, it would seem great if there was a way to strengthen the practice in 2 years, so that when you enter the world from the cave, you don't, because I get tripped up very easily right now. I think I've been in isolation for 5 years, but I can get tripped up with little conversations with people. And then
What kind of art? What kind of artist are you?
It's creating ephemeral pieces. The way I have been surviving is building the piece so that I'm not, so that I build from my heart, and then I get research money, a research grant after, so that I'm not compromising what I'm doing. That's been my strategy, and I do that because if I get a commission for something, then I feel I have to say what I'm going to do before I do it, so then it's not an experiment. And I also feel a great obligation, which kind of constricts what I do. So I did it that way, so that I don't put pressure on myself.
So, but you are not a performing artist, are you? You are more in like a sculpture or fine arts.
Yes.
Sculpture, paint, or whatever.
Yeah, on an architectural scale, but not practical, not functional, and not permanent. So you can experience a quality of space that's between destruction and creation. So it's a creative feeling potential space. That's what I'm investigating. That I don't, yeah.
Well, first, I'm not here to make you a better artist, or to make you, to give you ways to make money or to survive as an artist. Because each of us, we have our own destiny, and the fact that we are to make a living may or may not be attached to our vocation. And even those who are happy enough, if you are lucky enough, to have to be able to make money from their vocation, doing what they truly like to do, even those have chores. A performing artist who travels constantly to a soloist to give recitals, constantly on the road, and then he has to rehearse and he has to practice on his own or on her own, and this life is separate from his loved ones. There is solitude involved, so there is a price to pay to be, and you can find that in all art forms, there is a price to pay. There are chores. They cannot be avoided. A writer has, if he's successful, still has to do a book tour, for his publisher. It's not always fun to sign books and so on. So every activity has its chores. The question is, some performing artists, they choose to make money out of something else. If they are talented, they make money out of something else for which they have this talent, although they don't like it very much, but they make easy money, and the rest of the time, they perform their art. Also, I was thinking it's not always fun for a musician, let's say, playing in a symphony, who would like to be, in fact, a soloist. And it's repetitive, and even if you really perform in the line of what you love and your skills, etc., it's not always really rewarding. Well, that being said, what can I tell you about the path? The path is a path to happiness. And the first thing to understand about it is that as long as we believe that our happiness is dependent on something that is going to happen to us in the world, like, am I going to get the proper commission, which is going to give me all kinds of freedom, or some subsidies from this governmental agency or whatever. You should be in France for that. It's a better place. And if we make our happiness hostage of the acquisition or the fulfillment of a desire for something, we are in trouble. What we have to understand is that happiness is not delivered by phenomenal events. An artist, for instance, her happiness is not necessarily when she gets name recognition, when her paintings are hung in a famous art gallery in New York or in Paris or in London. That might be pleasurable because they think, oh, now I'm going to make money, I'm going to, I have arrived, so to speak. My works are going to sell for 100,000 and more, and I'm going to be among the 100 top fine artists in the world. But the real, for a real artist, the joy is during the creative process. You have to understand that. It's a creative process, because in the creative process, a real artist gets in touch with the source of invention, with with a source of intelligence, with a source of beauty, with a source of what is new, what has been never done, never thought of. So, and it is the same source we talk about here. Just as the artist has access to this source in a transient way, while he performs his or her research, but the rest of the time, they may be miserable. Look at Van Gogh. Van Gogh was miserable most of the time. He tried to commit suicide, actually. He did. And he was enjoying the performing, his art. He was writing to his brother, Theo, about this new yellow. I don't know what it was, a cadmium yellow or whatever, that he has just bought, and that how he liked this color. So you could feel the love, you could feel the innocence, the childlikeness in him. But at the same time, he was miserable. So I'm not here to make a better artist of you. I'm here to give you pointers towards the source of peace, of inner peace, of serenity, and ultimately of happiness. And that is totally independent from being an artist. In other words, you can be a very good artist and miserable. You can be a very lousy artist and very happy. So that's a choice sometimes. Of course, you can be a very good artist and very happy too.
Yeah.
But when you come here, it's about happiness. It's not about, the problem one faces as an artist or as a scientist, as an engineer, as a whatever, as a gardener, as a mechanic.
It sounds. Am I right to think that it would make sense to have a very simple life while you in pursuing this, just not to complicate things until you, yeah. Or get back into old habits. I've been in a cave for a long time, so now I'm trying to get out of the cave, and I'm tempted to just stay in longer.
What is important is not to do things, to do practices, to do yoga, no. It's one should take it easy, and one should think of the path only when one feels like it. So if you feel like going online with someone like Francis and having this conversation, do so. But if you don't feel like it, don't do it. If you feel like reading a book about that, do it. If you don't feel like it, don't force yourself. But it is the same actually about your artistic creativity and creation. Take it easy also, because it's not an orange that you can squeeze. It's creativity is a very strange orange. Usually, if you try to squeeze it, it has no juice. And then when you don't know, when you are not trying to do anything, all of a sudden the juice pours out of it. So,
yeah,
you see what I mean. So yeah, the idea is to follow your enthusiasm in life, to truly follow your enthusiasm. And don't see yourself as an artist. That's very important. Who knows? An artist is an artist only when he feels like creating, or when she feels like creating a work of art. But the rest of the time be nothing. And perhaps you'll discover that you're an artist only 3 minutes a day. You know, Einstein was perhaps a physicist only for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
You see, it's not a question of time, it's a question of intensity and the discovery. So try to, you know, if the goal is to live in effortlessness, why make more effort to reach effortlessness? Now, you have to know what you truly want. That's the most important. And to understand that you want what is good for you. As you know, I often say this, I often repeat what Spinoza used to say, or once said. He said that the problem most people have is that they believe that what they desire is good for them. Whereas the wise, they desire what they know to be good for them, which is not the same. So find out what is good for you. And then automatically you'll desire it. Instead of desiring something without discrimination, without knowing whether it's really good for you. You know, try to find out what is good for you. In other words, try to find out what you really want and put everything in question. Put even in question, do I really want to be an artist? Am I truly enjoying it? You know, I studied a lot of mathematics and physics in my early days, and I liked it. I still like it. I still, from time to time, do a little bit of that, just for fun. But did I like it all the time? No. It was not a constant love for it, you see. It was more like a hobby. So we have to be very clear-eyed about our interests in life.
Yeah, okay. That's
Ideally, you know, we have to understand that what we all desire is happiness. And then to really, instead of thinking that if we get what we desire, we will be happy, you see, is to ask ourselves, what would really make me happy? Which is a different question. What do I truly want? What is my deepest desire? The deepest desire at the bottom of my heart. Because people, you know, they want, you know, the story of the great Gatsby. You know, he was in love with a girl. He was poor. And he thought, well, I want to become a big shot. I want to become very rich. So he spent a lot of his life trying to become that. In the meantime, the girl married the other guy. And he should just have gone for what his heart truly wanted. Because the girl was in love with him. So
yeah.
we have to ask our heart, you know, what is it that I want? And don't hesitate to question it again and again, because our deepest desire is freedom. I can feel that in you. You know, what you say about commission, you know, you love freedom. You know, you don't want to have parameters given to you.
No, yeah, and the reality is that I work for years and years and years, to get the perfect opportunity for that one moment of freedom. To do a temporary piece, without any, yeah, it does take a long, yeah, and it's not pleasant too, because
It's like
it's
this mom. Sorry, go ahead.
no, that's it pretty much. It's like, yeah.
These mandalas that the Tibetans do, I think the Tibetan Buddhists, they on the floor, they put this beautiful mandala made with pigments. It's like a powder, and it's a beautiful kind of mosaic, but it's just pigment in powder that is placed. And when it is finished, they just blow it away.
Yeah. No, it's, yeah, okay.
Follow your heart.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Francis. Can I ask a question?
Please, Lily.
I have a question about the same subject. Like, if we know that the only true desire is to be fully established in peace, is it still worth it to wonder what we want on the level of manifestation?
Yes. Because what does it mean to be established in peace? It means to be free from worries. But even if we are free from worries, our path reaches forks. Do I do this? Do I do that? What do I do now? You see, so we have to ask ourselves, what do I really want? And it can be very innocent. It is not necessarily a big answer, or I want to be established in peace. I am at peace without worries. What do I want? Well, I'd like to eat Chinese tonight. That's as simple. You see that as simple as that. It's in a sense to give ourselves a break, to understand that happiness doesn't start from effort and misery.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay if we love effort. I play tennis. It's a lot of effort, or I do other things, but because I love them. You see, because ultimately everything is spiritual. Let me give you my definition of spiritual activity. Spiritual activity is an activity that comes from your heart's desire. That's all. That you truly want. It can be eating an apple.
Okay, but like on more like on the subject of a professional direction, I was under the impression that as long as we focus our desire on truth, like we could just let everything else just fall into place, but that might be a more passive approach. I don't know.
Well, no, because life challenges us, and life gives us, if you will, yoga exercises that we have to address, or tests. Tests, either we pass. If we pass the test, then we graduate, and then we will get another test, but on the next level. If we fail the test, we get a very similar test the next week, the next day, the next month, the next year. And let me tell you about type of tests. Relationships can be tested. jobs, relatives, parents, children, etc. So there are all kinds of opportunities in life to be tested. And in hindsight, we recognize that these tests that we passed were very important in our life because they helped us liberate ourselves from attachments, from misunderstanding about what we truly want. Ideally, we should try to have a professional activity, meaning an activity through which we make a living, which corresponds to a vocation, meaning an activity that we love doing. It doesn't matter how much time we spend on it, it makes us happy to do it. So that's the best. And the second option, as a truth lover, as a truth seeker, is to have an activity that gives us a lot of freedom. Mm-hmm. And because we have to understand that even if we, as I said earlier, even we have a professional activity which corresponds to a vocation, there will still be chores. So if we can find a profession that enables us to make a living and which corresponds to an amount of chores that are similar to the amount of chores that an artist, for instance, or someone who has a vocation would have, like 2 hours of chores a day, and 2 hours, 3 hours of activities that are pleasant, that are not chores. That's very nice because then we have a lot of time available. What we shouldn't accept is to be a slave of, one of these big structure, a big or small structure, to be alienated by an employer, be it the government, be it a corporation, or being a small business owner. Mm-hmm. We should try to find a form of independence.
Okay.
Because if we are a truth lover, we are also in love with freedom.
Yes, of course.
And if there is a will, there is a way. What I say may seem far-fetched to a lot of those who are listening, but that's very true. Often we think we are in a box or in a hole only because we have conditioned ourselves to believe that is the case. It is up to us to open the box. The box is never locked from the outside. We always lock it from the inside.
Okay. And any change, like you always mention, it always has to happen like organically. So even if you have a desire to move professionally in a different direction.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially in the modern world.
But like if we encounter a lot of obstacles, then that would be a sign that it's not a change that's being made organically, right?
Yes, it would be. It doesn't mean that the general direction that you want to turn towards is wrong. It means that the way to operate, to take this corner, if you will, is not appropriate.
Okay, I see. Okay.
the idea is to make yourself available to do whatever is, to give it your best shot. If your best shot doesn't work, then, but if your intent is impersonal, eventually, you know, this door will open somehow. That has always been my experience. But if you choose to remain in the box, you will remain in the box for the rest of your life, and it's amazing because I've seen people around me remaining in the box. You know, my parents, most people, they don't have this understanding that they can transform, that they can be the captain of their ship, not as a person, but to the extent that their intention is impersonal, comes from love, from intelligence. You know, someone who is in a job they don't like, they can say, you know, I'm not there in my destiny to be in a job I don't like. It's not normal, it's not fair. So let's try to find something different. It's a perfectly legitimate endeavor. It's totally impersonal, and as a result, the one who takes these steps, somehow, this door will open at some point.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Francis. May I ask a question?
Please go ahead.
Yes. I've been following your YouTubes and reading your books, and I've attended several of Rupert's retreats, and I think I'm feeling the peace and serenity that you both talk about. But I'd like to understand more on Jean Klein talks about the subtle body and the energetic body. And I'd like to see how this can help my so-called practice further. Could you explain this, the energetic body, and how we can feel it and get in touch with it? I realize we're not the body, but Jean Klein also says we must know it first.
Yeah. Our phenomenal experience is twofold, meaning phenomenal experience, everything we perceive in our human experience is divided in two categories. The world, which we perceive through the senses, through the five senses, and that's what is called the gross realm. And then, and it is the realm to which intersubjective agreement apply. In other words, you and I, we are hearing this sound as I speak in this moment. So this sound is part of the world because you and I, we are perceiving it. You see? Whereas Francis' thoughts, or Gordon's thoughts, and Francis' bodily sensations and Gordon's bodily sensations are not part of the world. So they constitute the subtle realm of our human experience. This subtle realm of our human experience, in turn, is subdivided in two subcategories. One is the thoughts, images, things we perceive during the dreams, and the bodily sensations. So the realm of bodily sensation is part of the subtle world, and it is that which we call the subtle body. That's very simple. That's very simple. And of course, there is a correspondence, a correlation between the subtle body that we perceive and the physical body that we see, or the gross body that we see in the mirror. There is a connection that goes both ways. However, there is a marked difference between the two. Now, because of this correlation that exists between our bodily sensations and the physical body that we see in the mirror, we tend to superimpose onto the bodily sensations the physical limitation of the body that appears in the mirror. In other words, we tend to superimpose the borders, for instance, of the physical body somehow to the subtle body. This superimposition of the borders to something which belongs to a totally different realm and is, in fact, borderless, seems to justify the belief that I, as awareness, am limited. That I, awareness, am attached to this body and not to the rest of the world, to the rest of the space, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
If awareness is not limited by the body-mind, if awareness is universal, in fact, our real body is the universe. And the universe should be perceived as a continuation, as a seamless continuation of the human body. When that happens, if you will, the border, the envelope superimposed onto the bodily sensation disappears. And the subtle body that was already present as these bodily sensations seems to be liberated into the space. People attribute the expression subtle body or body of energy only to the bodily sensations that obtain when this liberating experience occurs. But that's not true, because the subtle body pre-exists such a liberating experience in the form of bodily sensations. What happens then is that we realize that the bodily sensations don't have to remain confined within the borders of the physical body. And then we discover that, in fact, everybody quite often moves their subtle body beyond the usual envelope. An example, if you see a beautiful sculpture in a museum and you feel like the marble is polished and you feel that the marble is cold also. What you do, although you are at a distance from it, the tactile sensation of your hands, you explore it. It's not intellectual, it is your subtle body, if you will go there. About architecture, when you are in a room, and if the room is full of bulky furniture and you have a hard time walking through it because there is not enough room for you to walk. You feel a sensation of uneasiness, of lack of freedom. What is happening is that with your subtle body, you are moving. And you are banging against the furniture. These are examples, you know, because in the enjoyment of a work of art, be it a monument, an architect, or a sculpture, or a painting also, we use this tactile body, this tactile sense. We move out of the physical body. So that's perhaps a lengthy explanation, but the idea, the general idea is this, so I'm repeating it. If it is true that awareness is universal and not confined to this body, then it follows that our real body is the universe. And then the subtle body gets liberated when we experientially, when we have this experience of a seamless continuity between our human body and the universe.
Oh, I think I understand. Especially your example of the architecture in the room. Like even though my physical body is not bumping into anything, but I still feel my subtle body like bumping into objects. Yes.
Yeah, with that, another example. Imagine
Yes.
that you are mountain climbing and you reach a place where there is a very deep canyon, but it's a mini canyon. On top, it's only 1 yard, but it's 20 yards vertical. So in your path, you need to jump over that. It's not a problem to jump 1 yard, right? But
Yes.
the problem is the 20 yards possible accident. And so you are not going to go there and jump like that. What do? You must jump. Let's assume you have a big bear running after you. You must jump.
Yes.
What you do, you are going to prepare. How do you prepare? With your tactile body, you are going to feel exactly. It's like a cat who sees a bird. The cat prepares. Already he does this with his teeth. He prepares to grab the bird. He prepares. So with his tactile body, he moves forward and jumps at the bird already. And also, when you see someone you love, you caress them, you embrace them with your tactile body.
Before you even touch them.
Yes.
How would this apply, for example, to your physical yoga practice or any other physical activity, or like when you play tennis or any? I guess especially like yoga practice.
Well, when I play tennis, I'm a lousy tennis player, so I'm not going to comment on that. But it is not meant. It is not meant to have Although it's true that you can rehearse a movement with your tactile body without actually moving. For instance, Jean Klein was telling the story of this pianist, a soloist. He was flying to New York from Europe to have to play a concerto with in New York. And during the flight, he was rehearsing the concerto, just looking at the music, and with his tactile body, just so yeah, there are applications, but these are practical applications. Understand what I said is different because in our case, the issue is happiness. It's not performing at Carnegie Hall or it's not playing at Wimbledon. It's something different. It's about happiness, and happiness flows naturally when the body is completely integrated with the world. In other words, when this separation disappears. So you were asking about the yoga. That's the essence of the yoga. The essence of the yoga is to transform the way we experience the body and the world to make it consistent with the world and the body being the same reality.
And do you have recorded sessions where you explore this yoga more in your recorded retreats or your
No, we do
material?
that during retreats. We use because we go in details. We use the breathing techniques and things like that. But it's not important. What is important is to understand what I've just said, and at the limit you can create your own techniques, because the point is to ask yourself the question on the bodily sensation level and the perception level. Is there a barrier that separates my body from the world? And you discover there is none. And then, having discovered this, can I stay there? And then observe when the separation comes back somehow as a feeling, when you identify with a part of the body. So that then you always keep this expanded version of yourself. And what I say expanded is not like the body, the subtle body, which is made of positive bodily sensation, is going to expand. No, it is just that these bodily sensations, the experience of the subtle human body is comprised of that these bodily sensations are released. They are no longer confined within an imaginary envelope. They are completely released into the space. And you are the space. Your real body is the space, is the space of awareness in which the subtle body deploys itself.
So we are the awareness in which even the subtle body is, and not the other way around. So both the physical and the subtle body are actually in us, unlimited awareness.
Absolutely, and made out of us, but not only the physical body is actually the universe.
Mm, mm, mm. Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Francis.
Yes, hi, Jay.
So about 3 weeks ago or so, I was driving and suddenly I felt this sense. Well, at the time, I did not really know what it was, but it was more of unification with the world sort of a thing. And I realized that the sense of separation that I was trying to um, instill in my daily life from moment to moment and at the mental level now also was disappearing at the level of body. It seems like it was very easy for me to feel the oneness with my body does not get limit. It's not limited to this physical body that I have, but but everything around me. And that was way different than holding that idea mentally. um, I'm not sure if I mean basically after that, having noticed that okay, this everything is just one, the sense of separation in the body came back, and then a few more times it disappeared again, and I had the same experience. After having seen that or experienced that, I realized okay, so this I have been limiting myself to this body until now, and there's all the sensations in this subtle body or even the gross body that I have are not part of just this. It's not limited to this. It's just sensations that are appearing in the consciousness. And so I have been feeling a lot more disidentification with all those sensations and even the corresponding mental structures. But also I think that I have been also forcing myself during the times when the sensation of separation in the body comes back to not feel that way. And when that happens on and off, I feel a little bit of I wouldn't say pain or lethargy, but there is some lethargic feeling in the body.
Well, what I would suggest is when the feeling of separation arises, look at it as if you would have to write an article about it in a scientific journal. You see what I mean? Just observe it, look at it with interest. And asking the question, where is it localized in the body, or is it all over? Which organs are affected by it? Is it of the nature of thought, or is it of the nature of bodily sensations? Ask all of these questions. Now that you are experiencing the sense of separation.
Yeah, I feel like I have been doing that, but also when it seems like it's difficult, I've been trying to force myself, like, no, don't go back into the mental structures. See it for what it is.
No. It's not, we're not talking about what I am telling you is mental structure. But the observation, it's like I am telling you, okay, and let's assume you are a biologist, and I am telling you, okay, you have a question about this bug, okay, put it under the microscope, look at it, count how many there are per field, yeah, per 500 field. Observe how they divide, how they develop. Try to several a stain to color it in different coloration. Observe the nuclei. Observe all of that. All of that. Everything I'm telling, also I'm using words, is intellectual. But the guy who is going to go under the microscope, what he's going to see is not intellectual. He's going to see real stuff under his microscope. So that's the same. I'm saying this sense of separation, put it under the microscope, look at it. This sense of separation is not intellectual. It manifests. It must be there since you mention it. But you will discover that the beauty is this, that this sense of separation, which is in fact either thoughts or bodily sensations, that's why I ask you, ascertain which one it is in every case. In fact, the moment you truly see it for what it is, completely loses its separative power. It maintains a separative power, the power to separate you from the rest, only in the twilight zone. You know, or it's a little bit like the rope in the twilight, you know, mistakenly thought to be a snake. The snake can only exist in the twilight. The moment you pump up the light intensity in the room, it becomes obvious it was a rope, the snake evaporates.
When we do that, is it necessary to, so there are two aspects of it, right? When I'm doing that study, there is what is at the physical level and what is at the mental level that is corresponding with that physical separation.
No, at every moment, it's one or the other. So you have to find out which one it is. Sometimes it comes from concepts, belief systems. Sometimes it comes from feeling systems in the body. But and they may be playing ping pong or tennis with each other. But at every moment, the tennis ball is on one side of the court, of the net. Cannot be on both sides at the same time.
I thought it sometimes is both, where the physical is then grasping hold of the mental, and that's why I have the level at the mental level also I'm experiencing the same thing.
Well, there might be a causal link. In other words,
right.
The separation on the mind, on the conceptual level, may be the effect of a feeling of separation on the bodily sensation level, and the opposite may be true too. So, but by looking at it, you will see this causal connection. Because by looking at it, let's assume, for instance, it appears that the sense of separation is in the thought, or I am separate, I am alone, I am whatever, right? And then you look at the thought, and the thought will tell you how it came about, why you believe that to be the case. So then there might be intellectual reasons. Then you investigate them. Then you go down. That's higher reasoning. You go down. You deconstruct step by step. You know what has been constructed intellectually. But it may be that the answer is, oh, I don't know. Intellectually, I have no reason to believe. Now, intellectually, I trust. What Francis says makes total sense to me. So this sense of separation is somewhere else, since intellectually I am clear. So then you look at that's when you have to look at the feeling level, the irrational level.
Does that ever result in seemingly exaggerated bodily sensations that were not perceived before?
Only but only if you believe that they have to be eliminated instead of be understood.
Yeah, that is clear. But what it feels like, okay, it's somehow more intensifying.
Because if you see it, that's it. If you see it for what it is, a bodily sensation in the solar plexus, there is no need to spend the night. But usually people misunderstood what I suggest, and they try to go further. They believe that if they stay focused onto it, they will get a result which will be the disappearance of this bodily sensation. Whereas this bodily sensation doesn't need to disappear. It needs to be seen for what it is, a mere bodily sensation that has no separating power, that is no evidence, absolutely no evidence that we, awareness, are limited. That's all. That's all that needs to be seen. And that doesn't take long. But we are obsessed with getting a result in the form of bodily sensations, a phenomenal result. We see liberation like a huge piece of candy that we are going to get. Whereas liberation should be more understood as the dissolution of fetters that were preventing us from doing whatever we want to do.
I think it might be just one of these times because we are in this pandemic. It feels like, okay, at what point should I consider this as a medical nature, and not be kind of a little bit fearful about it. But then I do all those measurements, like I measure the vitals and all, like like you mentioned, the oxygenation, blood pressure, and everything. It looks, that's all okay. So I feel like, okay, maybe that is just bodily sensation.
Talk to your doctor. And that's what I suggest. I'm not a doctor, but also realize that, understand that the more we focus on a certain part of the body, the more we exacerbate tensions in this area.
That is true.
So, and understand that the goal is not to make this thing disappear, but rather to see it for what it is, to understand its nature. That's what I mean by to understand it, to see its nature. And this seeing is not intellectual, it's experiential, because it's the seeing of bodily sensations for what they are. So it helps to see where they are located, localized, because then once we see that where they are localized, it's no longer a feeling. A feeling is even more in the twilight zone. When the moment gets localized, it's a contraction in the solar plexus or in the esophagus or in the stomach or in the intercostal muscles or in the area of the diaphragm. It becomes really physical.
Yeah.
But then we have to ask ourselves, well, it is physical, it appears in me, awareness. And does it limit me? If it appears in me, is it me? Is it all of me? Obviously, it's not all of me. So if it is not all of me, it is not me. If it is not all of me, it is not me. It is simply made of me. It is made of me. It is not me because it is not all of me.
Can you say that again? Sorry.
I don't remember. No,
I'll watch the recording.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Francis?
Yes.
I want to revisit something that Grace asked a week or two ago. And I think the question was really about, how does she know there is no other in the experience of her being or of being? And the intellectual approach to showing why it doesn't make sense that there would be more than one is very clear. But in the realm of experience, for my experience, the experience of, I guess the word would be being, a silence arises or envelops the mind. In my case, thought usually just stops. And I don't have a way of telling anything what I know. And so I actually ended up being quite puzzled by your question about how does one know? There are moments when there's kind of the witnessing of the arising of a sense of I as a thing, and that is embedded in most other things that arise in the mind. And since it's seen as arising and where it's arising from, it's clear that it's not a separate thing. It's kind of self-evident that it's a wave in the ocean, as it were. But on some level, I can't tell you how, I guess I have the same question that you were asking Grace, but I'm asking it of you, which is, what would one look for to know such a thing? That maybe I'll say one more thing. The closest I've come.
Go ahead.
I guess I was borrowing from someone else. I think it was from Suzuki Roshi or someone. Actually, I don't know who it was from. It may not have been him. But the expression that came to mind was not one, not two. That even the faculty of mind that counts things and divides into one and many is seen as arising. It's not essential. But I have trouble knowing whether what I'm describing is a state of bewilderment and stupidity or just naturalness. I'm largely indifferent. I mean, it's not like it's a critical burning question for me. It doesn't seem to affect my well-being or the sense of well-being, but it has come back to my mind multiple times. And so I wanted to bring it up.
One knows when one is completely alone.
You mean alone with everything, as it were?
When there is nothing else than I, there is nothing then that could possibly affect this I. There is nothing else than I. And because there is nothing else that could or could have or could in the future affect this I is real forever, has always been. And then everything that arises then doesn't have the same reality. Or to be more precise, it borrows its reality. But you understand that your question, how can we know, cannot be answered really with words or concepts. Because the answer is precisely what happens in the absence of any phenomenal perception. Because then we are the answer to the question, and then we know in this absolute solitude, if you will. That's my answer. And the problem is we may have had this glimpse, but the mind comes back and says, well, I was not there, so what you tell me that you have learned there doesn't count.
That's exactly correct. What actually, yeah.
I want to be invited to see it, but the mind cannot be invited.
Well, that's pretty accurate. There is this sense, as you were speaking, almost like an echo of knowing, of it's hard even to describe, but basically it's similar to present when things arise. The thing is that the mind does keep coming back and saying, well, what if? What if hiding somewhere? And it's a funny thing because certainly that I see arising and it's not relevant, but it leaves in the mind, rather than a sense of certainty, it leaves in the mind a sense of uncertainty. Yes. It's almost as though my intellect is
yes.
Not functioning very well.
But what happens, that's why I recommend always a two-pronged approach. There is this approach through which we have glimpses. And we can, in hindsight, observe symptoms that such a glimpse has occurred, such as a shift in our interest and things that we are used to be interested in, we are no longer interested in, and people we used to hang out with, we are not interested any longer, and we discover new friends. We discover also, when we attend retreats, we discover a kind of plenitude that has no obvious cause, causeless peace, different atmosphere, but we don't know why that is the case, But these are good symptoms. These are symptoms that a glimpse has taken place. And the glimpse wants to become more and more obvious, so to speak. That's one way from the mind. It's like the mind sees that something has happened to the mind, but the mind was not present. It's like in this movie, Space Odyssey. There is this computer HAL, and the man, the software engineers, gradually remove the memory, memory block by memory block. So HAL feels that something is happening, but he doesn't know what, because what is happening is external to him. So after the glimpse, the mind is in the position of HAL. It doesn't know what's working behind the scenes, but something is happening because of the changes that can be noticed. Going back to the two-pronged approach, the other prong, which is open to the mind, is the experimental approach. You say, okay, now I'm going to test the theory that consciousness, awareness, is the universal reality by changing my ways and starting to live my life from this new perspective. To try, to see what happens. And then the response from the universe, without and within, will convince the mind that awareness is universal. So the noumenal conviction is experienced as peace and happiness. and intelligence and love. The phenomenal conviction is the result of cumulative experiments being conducted. So there is an accumulation of evidence in favor of the universal awareness hypothesis, and at some point this accumulation of evidence becomes preponderant, right, and reaches this threshold and then goes beyond that. The mind can never be 100% certain because the mind is not the reality. Only the reality of the mind is 100% certain.
Okay, I mean, I think that coda at the end that seems to be true to the what this mind is doing. My mind is doing, coming up with what ifs, most of which have very little logical basis or any, subjecting them even to reason, they fall apart.
Yeah, we have to accept this conversation with the objections that the mind has in reserve, in storage, so to speak, because then as we deal with them, they vanish, they get consumed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome, Nassim.
Oh,
Okay, I have a question.
Yes?
So, like in the movie, the 2001 Space Odyssey, right? So, like when the little blocks they're pulling the little block of Hal, right? And Hal's not quite sure what's going on. So, it, due to these mirroring neurons we have, could the same be said about communication between two people? Like if I'm pulling your little blocks out right now, you could be doing the same thing to me, right?
Yeah, perhaps.
Okay. Just it just popped in. Thank you.
Hi, may I ask a question?
Please.
Francis, can you talk a little bit about the difference between desire and addiction? Where does it become it's a desire from love of something that I'm pulled toward or drawn toward, but something that becomes more of an addiction? And can you just speak a little bit about the difference between those two things? Like even the subtle addiction to thought or thinking.
Depends. You know, it's like addiction to food. Depends. I mean, if you are not addicted at all to food, it doesn't mean you don't eat, right? Same thing, addiction to thought. If you are not addicted to thought, it doesn't mean you don't think. So addiction points at something as some form of abnormality. Overconsumption of food, overconsumption of whatever. For instance, overconsumption of thoughts. And this abnormality is there due to a psychological sense of lack. I was hungry, and then when finally I got food, it felt good. But pretty soon, a sense of lack appeared in me. But I am not hungry any longer. But I want to put an end to this sense of lack. And since in the past, when I was hungry and when I ate, I experienced happiness, relief, in fact. I thought in a very childish way, okay, I'm going to take food and I'm putting this food on top of the sense of lack in the hope that I'm going to eliminate it. When I say food, it can be booze, it can be sex, it can be whatever. And of course, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. The problem, however, is that in the process, sometimes that which begins as a purely psychological addiction interferes with the body and creates what could be called a chemical addiction in the body, which is different. So that the body will then kind of reproduce a condition that will trigger again the consumption of the substance that was the ones that was used to put an end, allegedly, to the sense of lack. So then we have a different problem when we are dealing with a chemical addiction. To the cure from addiction is therefore twofold. One, which is mandatory, is to get a cure from this original sense of lack, because as long as this sense of lack has not been eliminated, the sense of lack is the mother of all addictions, but in addition, it is the mother of psychological suffering. So we want to eliminate that. And then that's, if you will, the agent of the cure. But then we have the symptoms, which are left over in the body of various types, and perhaps also on the psychological level, of various types of chemical addiction, because there can be addiction to chemicals that we inject, or that we ingest or that we put into the system, such as tobacco, alcohol, opium, whatever, heroin, or they can be behaviors that will trigger the release of substances in the body, of hormones, that will create an addiction. For instance, some people can get addicted to danger, dangerous situation. Addiction to risk in various forms. For instance, people addicted to gambling. So this second part, the symptoms, have also to be addressed. And that can be addressed using psychotherapy or using also, that's not my field of expertise, perhaps other chemical substances. Both aspects have to be taken into consideration. Now, you were talking about desire. But desire, there are two kinds. There are desire that are natural, spontaneous, normal, and there are desires that are abnormal. And the desires that are abnormal are the ones that we believe are going to, the fulfillment of which we believe is going to put an end to the sense of lack. The origin of the sense of lack is our belief to be a separate entity. As long as this belief has not been addressed in all its dimensions, the potential for addiction, the potential for fear and desire is there and is going to be triggered again and again and again. So the source of both ignorant desire and fear and addiction is the same.
Okay. Thanks.
What about addiction to experience?
I don't really see what you, I mean, this question is vague.
Mm-hmm.
Because
What?
if you say addiction to awareness, that's a good addiction.
Yeah,
It's
well, that's, yeah.
addiction to life, being in love with life, you know, being addicted to whatever we experience from moment to moment. That's beautiful. Without choice, then it's not an addiction. It's the most natural of all addiction. Addicted to life, yeah. Addicted to love, addicted to beauty, addicted to intelligence.
Okay, yeah, okay.
But if addicted to experience means being constantly bored and always wanting, oh, I want to do something, I want to do this, I want to experience this, oh, I want to experience, I want to, because I am bored.
No.
That's a totally, you understand that? Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a totally, so if we just love things the way they are, if we love what happens from moment to moment, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Thank you.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you.